Yo, the time out the way.
I'm gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. George can't hit what his hands can't see.
Oh, look at this. Floyd Mayweather dropping his opponent. My goodness.
So we are live and direct. Part 2 or volume 2 of the Boxstar podcast. I am happy to announce we have a special guest here in attendance. We have the one and only, the lovely Hannah Rankin, pro boxer. And I'm not even gonna say female boxer, that's just disrespect. Just say pro boxer. Know what I mean? Yeah. My girl Hannah Rankin, and in the background you got my main man Noah Callan. So how you doing, guys?
Doing really well, thanks. Cheers.
We're good.
Noel, what's going on?
I'm good, my man. Apart from it being cold, I'm good.
Yeah, hence the hat.
Yeah, exactly. So how you guys maintaining with the COVID situation? How is training going? So give me some updates on that.
It's been going pretty well, actually, to be honest. Obviously, being a pro boxer, I've definitely got the advantages of having a gym to train in, like as a professional. So I feel very blessed and lucky to have the opportunity. I know a lot of people are really missing their training options, but yeah, so far so good. And obviously my sponsors, the Altitude Chamber, they've just made things easier for me and sent me through a machine to do my altitude training in the gym.
Right.
We've made a bit of makeshift with the weights and stuff. So Noel's been getting creative with the kettlebells and things like that. So yeah, no, still getting all the things that I need to get in. It's just all in the one place.
Awesome. Hannah and Noel. I mean, I've known Noel a little longer in the fitness world and in the boxing world. Our friendship or our knowing of each other, it goes back now to 2015, 2014, or something like that.
6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a context guy, and I like to give the listeners and the audience just some context about your life story. Now, before we get to the pro ranking stuff, I want to talk about your journey as a fighter, right? Give us some background on Hannah Rankin's journey as a fighter. What brought you to boxing?
Well, as a kid, I think most people know now, I did taekwondo when I was younger. Right. So both myself and my sister used to compete in that. I think it was a tactical move by my mum to stop us fighting each other at home and give us a good excuse to fight elsewhere. But I absolutely loved taekwondo. It was, I did it 3 times a week. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I love the discipline of the sport. But when I was carrying on into my music career, I stopped doing combat sports. So obviously, mum was concerned about injuries and things. But when I finished my undergraduate in Glasgow, I was getting back into Thai boxing then. I was training at the Grip House. They were doing like circuit training in Thai boxing. So I was mixing that up. And then when I moved to London, I went to Gym Box. I joined Gym Box because they had Thai boxing classes. And then I met Noel, and he introduced me to boxing with Derek Williams, who was also there, Big Sweet D. So they both introduced me to boxing, and totally fell in love with it. And then I carried on and went on to the next level, did some white collar boxing, raised some money for charity, wanted to push myself. And then obviously the next step after that for me was professional.
So, you kind of jumped the gun here. I mean, because a lot of people don't know this. I know this, but you said you moved to London. So you're from Scotland, correct? Yeah.
I'm from Scotland.
Are you from?
The West Coast, Loch Lomond. So about an hour north of Glasgow. Okay,
so it's not fair to call you a Glaswegian. Is that?
No.
Right.
No. So, I'm from Loch Lomond, so I'd say I'm from the West Coast of Scotland.
All right, cool. So from Scotland, you came to London. What year did you come to London?
So I've been in London since 2012, 2013.
And when did you meet Noel?
2014?
About 2014, yeah.
2014, yeah.
So, and you also, in that intro, you said music. So you're a musician still?
Yeah, I'm a classical musician, yeah. So I did my undergraduate at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and I actually moved to London to do my master's at the Royal Academy of Music.
Okay, so this is interesting. So I'm quite sure there isn't a boxer in the boxing world, and I don't know any who has a musical background. So that's interesting. So you went from classical music to music. to box. It's quite a contrast.
Well, actually, for me, they made perfect sense, but everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say that, because actually it's all about performing, isn't it? One is just you're performing in the ring on fight night. The other one is performing on stage with your instrument. When the lights go down, it's exactly the same sort of buzz, adrenaline, the excitement. Yeah, they make perfect sense to me, really.
No, so I understand the whole concept about performing, because yes, I mean, in some respects, a lot of people in different sectors are performers. But you can see the contrast why people might think you're nuts, because when you think of classical music, you think of someone peaceful, calm, stroking an instrument, where in a ring, you're bashing the hell out of somebody or getting bashed up. So that's quite a contrast. How do you see it that way, or how do you actually see that?
No, because I think as well for me with music's a real opportunity, like, to get in touch with your emotions. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I've always been told that, and it's the same thing with music. So whenever I'm performing, I'm giving a little bit of myself to the audience, and hopefully telling a story and moving them in whatever way the music can move them, and hopefully doing that. And I think boxing gives that same sort of thrill to people. Like, it's an entertainment industry after all, so people want to watch boxing, they want to get excited by it, they want to get angry, they want to get upset, or really into the moment. And it's the same thing with music. So there's a lot of adrenaline and excitement, but just because you're not punching anybody doesn't mean you're not feeling the same sort of like fight or flight thing when you're standing up there with a musical instrument. It's quite a similar response, actually.
Well, you know, I can dig it because I'm nervous talking to you right now. You know, hey, look, I've probably interviewed Hannah about 3-4 times, and this is probably the most nervous I've been. I'm normally not a nervous guy. I think because, you know, I realize now my girl is serious, and I'm actually nervous in an exciting way, because I'm happy for you, because I know the humble beginnings in which you started from. So let's talk about those beginnings when you met Noelle and Sweet D. And obviously, when we say Sweet D, we mean former British or former Commonwealth heavyweight champion Derek Sweet D Williams, who was well known for his encounter with Lennox Lewis quite a few years ago. What was it like, first of all, meeting Noelle? I'll get to Sweet D later, because obviously Noelle is your lead trainer in your camp. So what was that introduction and education like coming into?
Well, I went to join one of the boxing classes because I was doing loads of Thai classes, and people were like, "Oh, you should do the boxing classes. It's a really good workout. Noel really pushes people. It's a tough class. You know, can you hack it, sort of thing." And I was like, "Well, of course I can." So I turned up for the class, and I remember thinking, this guy is really loud and he's pushing everybody to the max, but I really, really enjoyed it. Right. And yeah, no, we just got on really well. And also I wanted to learn more, so I started doing some training sessions, like private PT sessions. Right. And I'm a sponge, and I think Noel has the same sort of discipline and dedication to something as I do, and drive. So like, he could tell that I wanted to constantly learn. So I was just like absorbing all this knowledge up. So we hit it off really well.
And Gym Box being a very popular gym outfit in London and in the UK as one of the personal or gym outfits out there, and one of the most premier outfits out there that's actually highly regarded for combining boxing with fitness. I think they personally do a very good job, because I think they nailed that market between boxing and gym, and people like yourself can actually walk in as a gym member but still get that boxing knowledge. So you met Noelle, it went well, y'all clicked, y'all gelled, that's great. How does Sweet D come into the picture? So
Derek and Noel are really good friends at the gym, and obviously Sweet D takes the other boxing classes, so he took the other classes at the time. So they both run their classes completely differently. So I got introduced to both of them, and I wanted to do both classes. And of course, it's great to learn from a former heavyweight champ. You know, like he was a fantastic fighter. Right. So I love listening to his stories about being in the ring and everything like that. So yeah, I think the pair of them just really inspired me when I first started out, and it was a great way to start the sport, really, for me.
So were there other girls with you along that time that were interested in boxing, or did Noelle and you just kind of click and you were not the only girl there?
No, I knew the classes really well. Like, basically, when I enjoy something, I do it a lot. So like, for me, my boxing was really my downtime. It was stuff away from uni. It was my time to switch off, and I really enjoy learning new things. So when I find something that I'm passionate about, I will attend it a lot to get better at it. So I attended lots of classes. I knew like at that time at Gymbox, it was kind of like a family. I knew all of the regulars. We all went to class together. We had favorite pad holders, all that sort of stuff. We worked together quite a lot.
Right.
So there was quite a few girls that I trained with, but also guys as well. And so yeah, it was a whole mixture of things, really.
So I'm intrigued. So obviously I've known you for some years now, but I'm still intrigued because and we'll get to the pro fights and the epic pro fights you've had, which our viewers and listeners will find very interesting in just a second. But I'm intrigued about the journey because to me, the journey is a part of the success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in your journey, you had the situation where here's this girl who came from Scotland, basically as far west as you can get in Scotland. So that's like as far north of England as you can actually get. So for people in the US who can't understand what I'm talking about, just imagine if you're in Washington, D.C., and then you're going to upstate New York. That's not just driving to New York City, which is 4 hours away. You're actually driving to the Canadian border. So when you're saying west coast of Scotland, that's about damn near the edge of the United Kingdom. So anything north of that, you're actually in the sea. So to go from the Highlands pretty much down to London in the south where it's all happening, did you find it a culture shock? Because obviously Scotland isn't as diverse as London is. How did you find that?
So basically, I decided I wanted to live in London when I was about 11 years old, when I very first visited it with my grandparents. My aunt and my uncle lived here, and my grandparents thought, me and my two sisters, we had us for the summer holidays, so they took us to London. We did all the sightseeing stuff and everything, and I fell in love with London then. Right. And actually, when I did my undergraduate applications for various universities, I also actually was accepted at university down here as well for music school. Okay. But I chose to stay in Scotland because I had a fantastic teacher up there. But I promised myself when I got to my master's, I would be moving to London. Okay. And I got a place at the Royal Academy of Music, and that's exactly how it worked out. But I always had every intention of living here because I love the buzz, the excitement. You won't know, but like where I'm from in Scotland, I live on a farm at the end of a 3-mile glen, pretty much surrounded by mountains and sheep. There's literally nothing else there. So like I live in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in an idyllic childhood, and it was really lovely, loads of places to play and everything. But like when I got older, all I wanted to do was be in the hustle and bustle of a big city like London. Right. And so I followed through in exactly what I planned to do, and I ended up down here. So it was exciting. It was exciting to see so many different people, experience different cultures, different foods that I'd never had before. Right.
Different level of craziness too.
Absolutely, so I had 4 years of undergraduate in Glasgow as kind of a stepping stone. Then I moved to London, and it was like we level up on the crazy. So yeah, it was really cool.
So and what was your undergrad? What did you major in?
So my undergraduate was at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. It was music with honours on bassoon. And then I came down to London to do my master's.
You've paused, my man.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, guys. The internet connection is a bit bad. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. There.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So, can you repeat your undergrad was in what now, Hannah?
It was a Bachelor of Music with honours at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. So it was a 4-year degree. My principal study is the bassoon, so that's what I studied there. And then before moving down to do a master's on the same instrument down here in London. Okay,
cool. Currently, just so our viewers know where you are now, could you tell us what gym are you at now? Where are you training now?
So I train out of Churchill's boxing gym in London, in South London.
Okay.
It's a fantastic gym, and there's some great pro stuff here. So yeah, in South London.
What other pro fighters train there now, out of that stable?
So Lucy Wildheart is also here if we're going down the girls route. Mm-hmm. And then there's been a few guys who are just turning over recently. Obviously Harry Mullins, he's just turning pro. Has his dad's gym, so Sam Mullins owns the gym. Right. There's also Connor here as well. So there's a few various pros that train out of here. People at the beginning of their journey.
You say Conor as in Conor
Pardon?
Ben? As in
Not Conor Ben, no.
Oh, about to say Nigel Benson. Okay,
No.
all right, cool. So yeah, so
No.
we talk about the journey. So it's clear that you went a non-traditional route to boxing, meaning you didn't go the amateur route.
Yeah.
So you went through the white collar routes to get to the pro. Talk about that for a minute.
So basically, I've been training boxing loads. I've been doing sparring classes and everything like this, and I wanted to go to the next level. So the next thing to try out was white collar, and it was a chance to be competitive in the sport. I wanted to see if I could beat somebody with all the stuff that I'd learned. There's no point learning something if you're never actually going to put it into practice. That's how I feel about things, you know. So yeah, we went in to do some white collar fights, and yeah, no, it was quite successful at those, and it was fun.
And what made you go to pro? What sparked that? Was that Noel? Was that you? Was that both of y'all? Just said, look, maybe you should try this because you're good at it. What sparked giving you a try or showing your hand at pro boxing?
I actually tried to get rid of her. So when she said she wanted to take it further, I tried to send her down the amateur route. Now I've got a pro license, but not an amateur license.
Right.
So I actually tried to send her to an amateur club. She didn't want to leave me or Sweet D as the coaching team. Right. So I then took her to spar at the time, the WBC Super-Middleweight champion, who was Kelly Morgan in this country.
Right.
Hannah got her ass whooped. And then when she got in the car afterwards, what impressed me the most was rather than go, I'm not doing that again, she was like, right, how do I stop that happening again? And so we kept going back. And I thought, this girl's determination, and she's borderline obsessive already. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do then. And in 4 years now you've been a pro? I mean, it's not bad. We're currently ranked 3 in the world by the WBC. She's a former WBC Super-Middleweight champion, the former IBO World Super-Welterweight champ. I think we boxed on DAZN twice, Sky Sports once, Showtime, all over the world. It's not a bad route. And not a bad career she's had so far. So,
I mean,
it was the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, clearly, clearly the right decision. Hey, you know, my wife always tells me I should listen to her more. So definitely, Noel, you listen to Hannah more. You know, a woman knows best, as they say. So you definitely made the right choice. So let's just basically talk about the obvious. What year did you go pro? Was that 2016?
Oh.
It wasn't 2016, was it?
Yeah, 2016.
2016, yeah.
That's what I thought. So, because I remember your first fight, what promotional stable did you fight under? Because I kind of lost track, because you've been in a couple of stables now, but who was your...
So I was fighting, my debut was in Southend on a Warriors promotion.
Yeah, a Warriors promotion.
That's right.
Mo Pryor.
Mo Pryor.
Yeah. Okay. Now, your record stands, you had 14 fights, 9 wins, 2 by KO, 5 losses. And so the victories speak for themselves. I'd like to focus on the losses, only purely because, as I said, the journey is a part of success. And in that journey, Noel always says to me, in some of the losses you've had, the one thing he always comments about is a positive. He never really focused on the negative. Like, he never says, oh, man, she fought Clarissa Shields, and man, god damn. He never talks like that. In fact, you couldn't have a more positive guy in your corner, because he always says, you know, she did really, really well. She fought against a girl who had massive amateur experience, and this girl has no amateur experience, and she held her own. So I want to get your take and Noel's take, because I want to focus on the 2 more notable losses, because these girls were high profile. I think when you talk about, let's talk about the first journey loss in terms of the girls that you probably are really, I wouldn't say an aura, but you kind of admire them as well. And that's the, well, obviously Clarissa Shields speaks for herself, but Alicia Napoleon, I mean, for me, when I was reading her background story, it's kind of similar to yours in some respect, because she doesn't really have an amateur background. What was your experience when you fought Alicia?
No. Oh, well, fighting Alicia was my first time fighting over in America.
Yeah.
The fight actually came up as it was offered to me when I was training in Celia Brackhouse's. She was training for upcoming fights, so I was over there sparring her. So I was in Ukraine, and the fight came up, and I thought, you know what, this is a great fight. I'm going to take it. And first time over in America, which was really exciting. And we were the only women's title fight. We were the only actual title fight on the card. We were fighting for the WBA Super-Middleweight world title. Obviously, we're both a lot.
You were Andre Berto undercard, is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was, yeah.
It was, yeah. And we should have been.
You signed to DeBella. Sorry to cut you off, but were you signed to DeBella, or were you just fighting under the DeBella Entertainment card?
No, I wasn't signed to anybody. I've been a free agent for quite a lot of my career. I'm currently signed to some promotions in America. But in my early start of my career, I wasn't signed to anybody. We did a lot of it on our own. And it's a different route from some people, but it means that I've had the flexibility to do the fights I want to do, and it's how I've got to where I am now, to be honest. Right. But yeah, no, so we went over there to take the fight. Obviously, Alicia and I are both quite small for super middle, so obviously it wasn't at the super middleweight limit. Right. But yeah, I was excited about the fight. The unfortunate thing on the night was that it was meant to be shown on Fox Sports, but we got pushed off the televised card, and we were pushed right to the very end of the card. And actually we were the most exciting fight on the card, to be honest, and it was dubbed the best fight that you never saw. So it was 10 rounds of war, and it was fantastic. I was raging not to get the win, but I thought it was a great fight.
Because I remember speaking to Noel, because there was a possibility of me flying to DC, because obviously my family's in DC, where we're from. So I actually was going to fly to DC, then take a train to NY to watch the fight. But I think there was some complications, because I think Noel tried to hook me up with some press passes, if you remember that, Noel, and that got a bit complicated. But so I stayed in London, which is where I reside, and then I was trying to watch it, but the fight wasn't aired, as you rightly mentioned. You met Andre Ward that night.
Yeah.
What was that?
So I met him the day before it was one of the highlights of my whole boxing career, really, because I think he's amazing boxers ever. One of my favorites. And the fact that we were in the rules meeting the day before the fight, we were checking the gloves and doing all that, and Andre Ward was standing there. And I'm not big about famous people. I don't really fangirl, but yeah, it was definitely one of those moments where I was like, Andre Ward is here. It was so cool. I got a picture with him.
You must have at least like, oh, Andre! Oh my goodness, Andre! You were like that.
Noel had to force me to go and get a picture, because I was a bit shy about getting a picture, to be perfectly honest. But he definitely is one of my favorite fighters to watch, and it was such a cool moment.
To be honest, was Noel acting like a groupie that day when he saw Andre?
No, actually, Noel never like a groupie, because he knows I hate that. But yeah, no.
Hey, look at Noel. He eat it back like this. Nah, I don't care. It's Andre, because I'm like that myself. Who cares about Andre?
I said to her that, because I know Hannah isn't a groupie, and she was like, I'm not going to go and ask for a fight. I said, that's Andre Ward. He's in your rules meeting, and you're the only one fighting for a world title. I was like, so go and get a photo.
Yeah, so, with the belt. This is going to be mine afterwards, Andre. So I want to talk about that experience. So when you obviously you lost a close 10-round decision, and Noel told me after, I didn't speak to you about it, but Noel told me afterwards that you had it in trouble in a couple of those rounds. I think Noel was saying, I think in the middle rounds you kind of had a wobbled a little bit. Did you feel like you won the fight, or you could have won the fight? How do you feel in that fight, or you felt like it was a fight you didn't win? Did you feel comfortable with the decision?
I felt it was a really great fight. I was frustrated that to not get the win, but then I think everything I planned for, with Alicia, she come forward fighter, she boxes on the front foot, she's aggressive, and everything we'd planned for that kind of went out the window after the first round when I hit her, and she obviously realized I could bang. So she went on the back foot and showed some beautiful back foot boxing, some lovely footwork, and so just a little bit of a lack of inexperience. I feel like being able to cut her off in the ring, and something that I look back at now and I can see where I would have been better, But I didn't feel that I didn't think it was a robbery or anything like that. I felt the scorecards were a lot closer. But actually after the fight, I realized I'd actually injured my arm, but I didn't realize I'd injured it until after the fight when actually I saw the doctor. So I tore my bicep, but I didn't realize that. So obviously in the fight, I'm trying to throw shots, but those shots aren't happening. But it was a fantastic fight, really, really good fight.
Well, Noel, you can answer this question as well. I mean, like I said, Alicia is someone who has a very similar background to Hannah and how she started. I mean, Alicia, I believe, was a personal trainer, and she co-owned a gym or co-founded a gym in New York, and that did very well. And then she did some charity boxing events and then moved on from there. So it's very similar background to Hannah. Did you feel like that's the reason why you took the fight? Because you felt, even though she is champ, the background and the level of experiences and the level of fights that you've had are very similar. So maybe you thought you could beat her?
So here's the thing with female boxing, in the world still today,
right.
It's not like the men's game. So you can't you can't have 15 fights against nobodies to check to see if you can do it at learning fights. That just doesn't happen.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. So you have to take opportunities and you have to take chances. Right. And Anna always said to me when we started this, because she started it late, that right. when she's all said and done, she doesn't really care what the record is. She wants to try and win a world title, and right. she wants to fight everybody and try and test herself. So when the opportunity came up to fight in Long Island on Fox Sports, as it was going to be, right. so you're going to fight a girl from Long Island in Long Island on Fox Sports in New York City. She was like, yeah, I'm in. Yeah. And we were in camp with Cedar Brackhouse, and I was like, you know what? I've watched the videos. It's a winnable fight. Right. Hannah had Alicia in trouble a couple of times during that fight. That's one of those arguments. If it was 3-minute rounds, would Hannah have then won, etc., etc. But looking back on it, Hannah wasn't experienced enough. So had she won, well, you're then in the big league then anyway, but you don't have the experience. So everything that Hannah's done up to this point and our next journey, which is at 147 pounds, is all that experience. Like you say, when you come on to the other people she's fought in a minute. So the reason we took that fight, 1 was for exposure, 2, it was a great business decision, and 3, who doesn't want to go and fight in New York? Let's be honest.
Well, from that fight, you immediately had to step up in class with Clarissa Shields, which is my next point. Was that part of the game plan, or that just fell in place as a result of the Alicia fight?
So how that came about was Hannah used to train a lot with Christina Hamer, the former undisputed middleweight world champion. Right. And Christina and Clarissa were due to fight, and Christina got injured, right. and I think she was sick. So she had to pull out the fight. Right. And the question was asked of us as Christina's training partner, right. would we be willing to step in to the breach and have a pop? Right. And everyone thought we were mad. 2-time Olympic gold medalist, one of the best female fighters, probably pound for pound #1 between her and Katie Taylor right now, let's be honest. Right. Maybe one of the greatest female fighters that will ever be of our generation. Right. And we talked about it. We said, look, this is one of those fights that you can take that as long as you perform well, even if you don't win, it doesn't harm your career. Because everyone already assumes she's going to be a pound for pound great. She's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. So we decided to take the fight, which we did. And we had a great experience. Hannah put up a good show. There was a lot of the weigh-in was fun. I mean, I'm sure you remember Hannah dropping her head into Clarissa. Yeah. Throughout that fight.
What was that like? I mean, why did you do that, Hannah? Was it experience? Was it nerves?
No nerves. I spent the whole week waiting to actually we'd waited for Clarissa the whole week. She was a champ. She was taking her time to do everything. We'd spent all week just waiting for her. And by that point, I was super focused. I was ready to go. I had the best training camp of my life. I was feeling I couldn't be in any better shape, And mentally, we'd been pushing all the buttons, getting her ready and, doing the mind games and everything. So when it got to the weigh-in, she was taking forever to get her trousers on and sort stuff out. And I said, oh, don't worry, you don't need to put your shoes on. It won't make you any taller than me, sort of thing. Anyway, when we came face to face, we were just at each other straight away. It was a very natural reaction, and it wasn't actually planned at all. We just were having a go at one another because we were super competitively aggressive for the fight.
I think what some people forget is that Hannah might be really nice and well spoken now, but at the end of the day, she's Scottish.
So she has a lot of bull in her.
What she won't say is when, I mean, obviously her and Chris are best friends now. I think she spoke to Chrissy yesterday.
Yeah.
What she won't say here, and I'll say it, is that when they went head to head and Carissa was like, I'm going to take you out in 4 rounds, and was going at her, Hannah, when she opened up her hands and put her head in, I think the first words that came out of her mouth was, "You got this wrong, I'm Scottish, I don't back down." And I was asked on stage by one of the security guards, is this like for the cameras? And I was like, no, you should probably break them up because they're probably going to fight. Because even when we left the stage, when we were doing the gloves meeting and choosing the gloves, they were still popping at each other. So that went on for about the next 30 minutes after the cameras had turned off.
Right.
So if they'd have been left at it, they probably would have had a fight there and then. But they're best friends now. Well, out.
So I mean, like, you know, in regards to, because that was probably easily to date, that was your biggest test in boxing.
Yeah.
And probably you could easily say your biggest or your best experience in boxing. Period.
Well, I wouldn't say it was my best experience in boxing. Becoming world champion in my own home city is the best experience I've ever had in boxing.
Okay, so
like becoming.
We'll get to that later. Say that for park that for a minute. Okay, what I'm trying to get at here is with Clarissa Shields is a very she's an enigmatic character. She's well spoken. She's affluent. I mean, she's got that southern twang. So she puts her words quite together. But she had a very interesting upbringing as well. Her story is quite touching. So there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotions behind Clarissa. And being African American, I mean, you sort of understand the sort of urban influx of what it's like to be poor and then to become somebody, even in a boxing sense or anything. So she's bringing all of that to the table. Did you find that with Clarissa, you're like, okay, now I find out what it's like to be a sort of African American who basically is a sports figure? Did you kind of sense that, or did you just feel like this is another fighter? I don't care 2 hoots. I don't give 2 hoots about a background.
As far as I'm concerned, when I'm focusing on a fight and I'm focusing on what my next upcoming fight, I don't think about that person personally. I don't think about their personal life experiences. I'm not attached to them. I don't feel emotionally attached to their story or their background. I think nothing about it because at the end of the day, we're both going in to have a fight. Right. And at the end of it, we can be friends and we can talk it all out and I can appreciate where you've come from and stuff like that. But I think that's what really made the difference between me and Clarissa is that we just really felt we had nothing in common. And that's the funny thing now is that we actually realize we have so much in common. We have the same sort of mental attitude towards things, the same outlook on life. We're very like pro women's boxing, want to progress the sport. We're super dedicated to what we're doing. But at the time, we just thought we were chalk and cheese. Like there was literally nothing. And I think that's what helped fuel the sort of like the aggression in the lead up to the fight.
We had a plan. And in reality is Hannah was never going to outbox the 2-time Olympic gold medalist. No. Okay? Right. So we had a plan, and Clarissa won't mind me saying this because we've talked about it in person loads of times since then. We decided to push as many buttons as we could because I wanted Clarissa to be so mad as she was at the press conferences telling Hannah she was going to knock her out inside 4 rounds, at the weigh-in, at the public workouts. I wanted her to be so mad that she didn't want to box, that she wanted to fight. Right. Because the more I got her to fight, the better Hannah's chances were of winning. And even her coach, who I know really well now himself, had said he'd spent most of that fight telling her, stop trying to knock Hannah out. Stop trying to knock Hannah out. Because they were fighting after the bell, I think, in round 7.
Yeah, I remember. It's a good little scrap that was, yeah.
And
part of the fight.
And even Clarissa says, when she came to London and we did some charity work with her, even she was telling a story about how she blocked me on social media because I'd pushed so many buttons that I'd annoyed her enough that she blocked me. Obviously, but so I spent the whole camp, obviously outside of that camp, we absolutely have respect for where Clarissa came from, what she's achieved, the Team USA stuff, and obviously her boxing abilities. Inside that particular camp for that fight, all we talked about was how Hannah was to disrespect those medals, disrespect where she came from, disrespect her background, disrespect Team USA, because I didn't want Hannah to get in the ring and be in awe of what her opponent, in this case Clarissa, had achieved. So we didn't care that she had 2 Olympic gold medals. Made no difference to us.
Right.
We'd spent the entire time prepping mentally to totally disregard everything she'd done, because I wanted Hannah to get in there and want to fight, not be, it's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, I called the Ricky Hatton approach, because you remember when Ricky Hatton was fighting Mayweather.
Yeah.
He tried to get into Mayweather's head.
100%.
It almost worked, but then he didn't realize that Mayweather is as headstrong, if not more so.
Yeah.
Remember that famous part where Mayweather went to Manchester and put on a Manchester United shirt in front of a lot of Man City fans to kind of wind them up. And he just played devil's advocate the whole way through. I think after one point, Ricky probably thought, you know what? I can't do anything.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm just about to go in and just fight this guy, because this guy is just mentally headstrong. So after that Clarissa Shields fight, you went on a string of a couple of victories, and then you recently experienced a loss again. What was that like, that last loss you had? And it was something that I didn't expect that, because I obviously have high hopes with you, and I'm one of your biggest fans. But talk me through that last loss you went through.
So I'll go first with that one.
Right.
So obviously, unlike a lot of fighters, Hannah managed to fight twice in 2020.
Right.
So at the beginning of 2020, she stopped the former IBF welterweight world champion inside 3 rounds, dropping her 3 times. Then obviously the pandemic hit, and nobody knew when anybody was going to fight again. We couldn't go to the States, so promotional stuff there wasn't going to happen. We couldn't fight. There were no fights there either. Then people started talking about her versus Savannah Marshall at middleweight. Now, Hannah's not a middleweight, really. Savannah's a big middleweight. And probably Savannah, I would suggest, is on most people's pound for pound number 5 list. So when I was talking about Hannah's career earlier, when you think about it, she fought a legitimate world champion in Alicia Napoleon in her own backyard, and has fought pound for pound greats of her generation. 1, Clarissa. 2, probably the hardest punching female on the planet in Savannah.
Right.
So the opportunity came up. We said, because they wanted Hannah to fight Savannah, as in Matchroom did in Eddie Hearn. Right. They kept coming to us. We kept saying, no, this is what we want. This is how it's going to work, or we're not playing ball. Right. They went away again. They came back with something different. We again said, no, we're not interested. And eventually Hannah got what she wanted. Right. And the opportunity to fight, the PR that comes with fighting on Sky Sports and DAZN, we knew it was going to be a tough fight. We knew it was going to be hard work. Right. And ultimately, that was why I told Hannah to take the knee in round 7, because what a lot of people don't know, Hannah had a burst eardrum after round 3 and a potential fractured jaw. Right. And Savannah is so big that proved our point that Hannah wasn't a middleweight. Right. Obviously, the first 2 rounds, most people agree we won. Mm-hmm. Then Peter Fury told Savannah to use her physicalities and clipped Hannah around.
Peter Fury in your corner?
No, he's in Savannah's corner. He's Savannah's trainer. Oh,
right. Sorry. I thought you were saying Peter Fury.
Then he told Savannah to use her physicalities.
Oh, sorry. Told Savannah to use her physicalities. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
And she's just too big and hits too hard. Mm-hmm. And with Hannah's balance gone from her eardrum, there was no head movement anymore, which was our plan. So I decided to save her for another day. And that's prompted our drop to welterweight. Mm-hmm.
So for the listeners who don't understand about the perforated eardrum, when someone's eardrum is perforated or burst, what happens is there's an equilibrium issue. So you lose your balance. Yeah. And so when you hear Noelle, Hannah's coach, saying that her balance was gone, so therefore don't push it and save for another day, it's quite dangerous to push on through that. So that's quite a logical thing to do. Hannah, what's your take on that fight?
So basically, I felt like it was a fight of 2 halves. Like when I watched it back, the beginning, I'm doing really well. I'm pleased with the first 2 rounds. I win the first 2 rounds. There's an argument to say I won the 3rd. But then after that, at the end of the 3rd is when the eardrum goes. And it's like 2 different fighters. Like the person that comes out in the 4th round is not the same person that came out in the first few rounds. But it's fighting at the end of the day, and you can't like not expect to get any little injuries and stuff. So I did the best as I could, and I was disappointed because I was really pleased with how I started off in the fight. So it was very frustrating for me, and also frustrating to be like to have to take a knee. But I respect my corner team, and I understand what they were going to say. So it does mean it has prompted the drop down to welterweight, which I'm really excited about. I'm well on my way there at the moment, hence the hat, because I'm cold. Yeah. And I'm hungry, but apart from that, I'm good, and I'm really excited about going to welterweight. But yeah, Savannah was, she boxed real well, but she's just too big for me on the night, that's all.
So I want to get to the welterweight issue, because you've now boxed at 3 different weight classes: welterweight, super welterweight, 154, and you fought at middleweight. But you probably fought at catchweight, or did you actually try to go to 160 limit?
So I boxed at middleweight, I boxed a super welter. I've also boxed under super middle, but we weren't anywhere near the super middle limit. So I've never been down to welterweight. It's my first time going down to welterweight.
All right. So when you had that belt, that was at 154.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this is your first time. So that actually makes it 4 weight classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So I want to get to the weight training issue in a minute, or the fluctuation in weight in a minute. Let's talk about something. We're going to digress just for a moment, because we're talking about the knee and taking a knee in the 7th round. Because I'm going to touch upon something that a lot of people, viewers especially, and the haters and naysayers, the people who don't know much about boxing, and a lot of the critics, when a person takes a knee, or if a person doesn't get off their stall, what's always branded is that the person quit. Okay.
Yeah.
I.e., we talk about some well-known boxers who have done it in recent times. Kell Brook did it twice, against Earl Spence and against Triple G. Daniel Dubois recently did it against Joe Joyce. And the list goes on. There's several other fighters who have done exactly the same thing. Now, in a recent interview, I heard a person I've met once or twice. I'm quite sure you've met him as well, Anthony Ogogo. You probably met him at one of my shows. We did one of our charity boxing shows we did at York Hall in London a few years back. And he came out in defense of Daniel Dubois after his fight with Joe Joyce. All right. So what people don't realize is, when someone is carrying an injury in the sport of boxing, because it's a very heavily aggressive physical sport and activity, that there could be a very thin line between permanently injuring yourself and just taking a loss. Talk about that for a minute, in the philosophy or the concept behind. Noel, you could probably take lead in this answer, because you advise your fighter to take a knee in the 7th round. What was your thing?
So here's the thing. A couple of those examples you mentioned are in my opinion, different ends of the spectrum. Kell Brook against Triple G was rescued, quite rightly so, by Dominic Ingle. Right. Dominic Ingle cut the towel in my opinion, probably a minute before Triple G knocked him clean out. Mm-hmm. Then it turned out he had that injury to his eye and his broken eye socket. Right. Against Errol Spence, he could feel the injury happening again, and he decided, because he knew how bad it was the first, that he took the knee. Mm-hmm. So slightly different variation here. Daniel Dubois, in my opinion, should have been pulled out the round before, and then he wouldn't have had to make that decision himself. And on that night, only he knows whether he decided he couldn't take any more. Mm-hmm. So slightly different variations. Hannah was going out on her shield, for want of using a fighting word, because if you listen to the commentary, or if you listen to the fight, you clearly hear me shouting. And she's in the corner with me. She's above me, literally there. And I'm shouting, Hannah, take a knee. Hannah, take a knee. And I must have said it 5 times before she took the knee. Mm-hmm. And so when we were in hospital afterwards, I said to her, could you hear me shout and take a knee? And she said, yeah. And I was like, why didn't you take a knee when I was telling you to take a knee? She said, well, I wasn't going out. She said, I'm not going out like that. And then she said, I sounded really angry by the time I got to the 5th time. So she thought she better take the knee. So she only did as she was told by me and the corner team. If I hadn't have shouted that, she'd have stayed on her feet and got stopped on her feet, in my opinion, in that round. So there's different variations in that. Like, some people would suggest that Anthony Joshua quit against Andy Ruiz. Yeah. Now only he knows.
I was going to state that one, but that was a bit less. That was a bit more obvious, but a bit less controversial, because there was no injury sustained. I was talking about these previous individuals.
Well, he might have had concussion. That's the argument, isn't it? So,
well, that's the argument. I mean,
it depends which way you look at it. So,
but I also think as a fighter myself, right? So I took the knee, and then I stood up well within the count with full intention of carrying on that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't stay on my knee and wait until the count was counted out and that was the end of it. Right. I was up before the end of the count and I was getting ready to go again. So I think it depends how you look at it as a person. It was the referee's decision then. He waved it off. But I was prepared to go again. And I think mentally how you look at it is two different ways. If you want to wait till the ref counts you out, that's your decision. Right. But you've chosen to not carry on. Whereas I was ready to go again.
I might add to that I'm happy with the ref's decision to stop it.
Well, I think a very similar situation to yours. I mean, it's once again, it's going from one extreme to the other, but it's a close similarity. Is a Deontay Wilder fight when he fought Fury the second fight, and the perforated eardrum, and Mark Brilliant threw in a towel and called that fight a halt. And obviously, famously, Deontay fired Brilliant. We can argue whether that's the right thing or wrong thing, but he actually wanted to go go out on his shield, very similar to your stance. So I guess there is some similarity between that fight as well. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And also I think as a fighter, you're always going to need to be eventually saved by your corner. I personally think that. I think like for me, I was getting up, I was up before the count and I was ready to go again. But the referee decided he'd had enough because I was hoping I'd get back to the corner, I'd speak to my team and we go again. But like obviously my team were like, you're gonna take a knee. And that's it. So you either you listen to instructions or you don't listen to instructions as a fighter, but you're always gonna want to fight again.
My thought process was I knew from my clock in the corner there was 12 seconds left. Right. So I told Hannah to take a knee, hoping that we'd get back to the corner, and then in reality I probably wasn't going to send her out again. I was going to wave it off.
Okay.
That was my thought process. I wasn't going to throw the towel in while she was there. Take the knee. I stalked her in the corner because it's a world title fight at the end of the day. Right. But the reality is I was about 90% certain I wasn't going to let her go back out for the 8th round. So I'm not unhappy that the ref stopped it. As much as she wanted to go, she wasn't going back out.
So I guess the moral of the story is I guess the both of you are probably I might be correct in saying this. You're of the conviction or of the opinion that fighters shouldn't be branded as quitters when they're in that situation, if they have to take a knee or if they decide to not go out for the remainder of the fight in that situation.
I think it's how you respond to taking the knee. So personally for me, if you take the knee and then you don't stand up to go again, then you decided to quit. In my opinion.
So I guess the difference is
as in the Joshua Ruiz Jr. fight, that would be a classic example of that.
Only AJ knows when he was kicked off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Only he knows. And here's the thing. Somebody who I have working in my corner, Gary Jacobs, former European and British welterweight champ, probably the greatest fighter in the UK never to win a world title. Yeah. He always calls it looking through the door. And you don't know how you're going to react until you have to look through that door. Right. And some people are willing to continue. Kell Brook in the Triple G fight, when he was looking through that door, was willing to go on. Right. When he got to the Errol Spence fight, because of what happened going through the door, he wasn't willing to go through it again. Right? And that's...
And of course, you could always throw in Kell Brook when he fought Terence Crawford. It's the same situation.
Yeah. No, 100%. And he probably should have retired a few fights ago in reality. But there's no shame in deciding, and this is my take on it, there's no shame in deciding that you don't want to take any more. Because it's not, you know what I mean? Like when you get to that point and you're looking through that door and it's going wrong, you don't, it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? And you only know how you're going to react when you get there. And people who brand them cowards or quitters, we've had it for Hannah because she took the knee. Like at that point, she had a suspected fractured jaw and a perforated eardrum, and she fought 4 rounds with that. Mm. So it's only people know. I use Arthur Abraham against Miranda when he had his broken jaw and that grotesque swelling, and he somehow managed to get to the end of the 12th round and win. Nowadays, that probably would have been stopped. But it's sometimes Kevin Mitchell when he fought Linares. If he'd have took a knee at the end of that round instead of throwing it all out there, he probably would have got to the next round and it would have been stopped on cuts and he would have been WBC lightweight champion of the world because he was ahead on all the scorecards.
Right.
But rather than take the, he decided to go out on his shield. Probably cost him a chance to win a world title. So it's not for everybody. And sometimes fighters should be braver than their coaches. You don't need a brave team. Right. And I know one has a chin. We know that. And two will never quit. So it's my job as the corner to save her. And that was why in round 7, I was like, no, we're done. We're out. So it's, do you know what I mean?
I'm going to segue into my next point because I was in one of my previous segments I did. I was talking about the lightweight division, which we're going to talk about towards the end of this interview. And I was saying, you know, I made a reference that when I had a brief amateur boxing career, and I remember I was sparring and I got a cracked rib. And for those of you who have had a cracked rib in your lifetime, you know it hurt like hell. It's hard to breathe, and there's no way of really curing a cracked rib. It just heals with time. So when you have that cracked rib and you recover and you go back and start sparring again, somebody might call me nuts. Now, I've been dropped in sparring before and never, dissuaded me from getting back in the ring. And but when someone takes an L, either gets knocked out, gets dropped, or what have you, gets TKO, whatever else, to get back in the ring shows an incredible amount of heart. For example, in a recent example, when Garcia fought Luke Campbell, he got dropped with a beautiful punch, got back up, and as we know, he took care of the job towards the end of the fight and dropped Luke Campbell with a beautiful body shot. Now, it takes heart to do that. I think it takes as much heart, if not more heart, to come back from a TKO loss, as in Hannah's case, and now she's going back again for your next fight. You are traveling to South Africa. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. I think, like Noel said earlier on, like my career, I finished an O. That wasn't what I planned on doing. You know, I wanted to go out there to see just how great I could be at the sport. And I became world champion, and there's more I want to do, and I'm going to become a 2-weight world champion. That's my goal. But yeah, no, I've fought some of the best people on the planet, and you can never know how good you really are until you fight the best people. And then that's how you improve and you get better. So losing to Savannah, yes, I was massively gutted, and I was really upset about it, and I had injuries to fix. But after coming out of that fight, then I've learned loads from that fight again, and I've been in the gym and I've leveled up again. So I'm really excited that I'm now dropping down to welterweight. I'm getting out on the 12th of March in Cape Town in South Africa to try out the new weight. And I'm just really excited about it.
Will you stay at welterweight? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about this girl you're fighting. Tell us about the girl you're fighting out in South Africa.
So she's a 2-weight South African champion. Mm-hmm. I've tried to have opponents come over from Africa before, and over here in the UK, it's quite difficult to get opponents from there because of visa issues and things like that. Yeah. So I feel quite excited that I get a chance to go to Africa to fight them, because there's a wealth of female talent in the whole of Africa, and we haven't been able to fight them because they're not able to leave the country that easily. Right. But yeah, no, she's training hard for this fight. Yeah, she's 2-time South African champion at different weights, so I'm sure she's going to bring it, and I'm really looking forward to it. And
that's your fight. There's not really like a major belt online for this particular fight. So what is the springing board for? Like, why choose this fight? Why South Africa? Why this opponent?
So my manager, Sam Kinnock, has been very busy behind the scenes. Obviously, as you know, being the current climate, it's not that easy to get a fight. Right. You can't just go and your normal show, small hall shows on a Saturday night. So he's been very busy working towards things, and he's working with a group in South Africa called Fight Africa Promotions. Right. And they're building a really great connection between Scotland and South Africa. For the fighters of both places to get opportunities to fight. So I'm feeling very lucky that Sam's been so sort of ingenious and gone and looked outside of the box and found me an opportunity over in South Africa. So it's my first fight at welterweight. Going down towards welterweight is a new weight for me. So go try out the weight, see how I feel. I'm sure I'm going to feel great. And my goal this year is to fight 3 times at that weight and set myself up for the opportunity to hopefully fight for a welterweight world title next year.
I mean, what a lot of people won't know is that Sam, her manager, is the director of Fight Africa Promotions. So we're actually the home fighter. Yeah, we're actually the home fighter in Cape Town.
Yeah.
So our plan will probably be to fight this one. Hopefully it goes well. Hopefully the pay-per-view sales go well. Right. We'll probably fight again in Africa in the summertime before shows open here. And then the plan will be to finish the year with some kind of welterweight title, the European champion, Dominique, bring her to Scotland if shows are open again. Or we'll fight for a 3rd time in Cape Town and for some kind of WBC belt. So, and then trace the world titles next year.
And in terms of the coronavirus, because we are in a very tricky climate, what is the sort of physical protocol you guys have to go through in order to fight out there in South Africa?
So there's quite a lot of things to take on board. Obviously, I've got to do my COVID test before I go. As a professional athlete on my team, we're allowed to travel, which is good. So we do our COVID test before we go. We've got COVID tests on arrival as well. And we go into a fight bubble there. The fight itself is actually taking place in a prison in Cape Town, which is really exciting, a whole new sort of like venue for me, which is great. But we will be within a fight bubble there, so everything will be secure. And then obviously when we get back, we've got to allow 10 days of quarantine in a hotel. So we've factored all of these things in. And as far as people are like, oh, I don't want to quarantine for 10 days in a hotel afterwards. But to be honest, if you want to progress your fighting career, you have to take these things into account. So yeah, all of it's been thought about.
As I understand it, it'll be the same protocols that we fought on the Matchroom shows here. So it's a secure bubble. Everyone's tested. The only people in the bubble are people who've tested negative. So it just happens to be in South Africa.
So just to make sure I heard correctly, you fight in a prison in South Africa?
Yeah.
So what do they do? Just find a vacant prison and say, oh, you're going to fight there? How did that come about? Sam has been working hard.
It's one of the prisons that Nelson Mandela was in for a while, apparently.
It's called the Pollsmoor Correctional Unit.
Yeah, I go there all the time. It's one of the brothers.
I mean, we're in some bizarre places all over the world, so it's no different, really.
Well, I mean, look, South Africa is a phenomenal country in itself. I haven't been there, but you know, a lot of people that I know have been there, and I even know a couple of South Africans. They speak highly of it. So, you know, obviously, Sam has obviously got your back, and he's going to look out for you. And obviously, you're in good hands with Sam and Noelle. So, Noelle, it's her first time at welterweight. What was the most comfortable weight you've seen her fight?
Well, in reality, and I said this in an interview I did. In reality, I said this in an interview I did the other day. Hannah's probably always been a welterweight.
Okay.
But when she started 4 years ago, obviously the only reason female boxing has come to the forefront in this country in 2020 is because of COVID. Yeah. Yes, Erin has done a great job in putting on some great female fights, including Hannah's. But the reality of it is it was business as well, because they're cheaper to put on than the male world title fights. Right. So when we first started, there wasn't the opportunities. So she comfortably made 154. That wasn't pretty easy. Obviously, she was the first female in the UK to headline a TV show when she won the IBO world title on the BBC.
Yeah, remember that.
That's another. And we've gone up and down the weight classes. When we fought Alicia Napoleon at Super-Middleweight, it was actually 161 pounds that we were contracted at. So it was only just over the middleweight limit. When she fought in Detroit, we made a promotional debut. She weighed in at 152 and it made that easy. So the reality of it is she's probably always been a welterweight, but because the belts were tied up with Celia Brackhouse for the last 5 years, we never thought about going there because there's no opportunities. Now, obviously, she got beat by Jessica McCaskill. There's that rematch about to happen. I believe Cecilia will win the rematch.
Me too.
Then there'll be a third fight. So those titles are tied up this year. Right. So we're comfortably on our way down. 156 this morning. We're on our way down to welterweight, and it's going really well. So she's probably always been a welterweight, to be honest.
So, Hannah, how do you feel?
Oh.
Do you share the same sentiment as Noelle?
Yeah, no, I do actually. I think, you know, with my career, it's definitely been about taking the opportunities that come up. I'm a big believer in that in life in general. You know, you should take all these opportunities that come up because you never know what's going to come of them. And having done it the way I've done it, I've had some fantastic experiences, fought some amazing people, won world title, won the WBC silver title at home. So yeah, no, but I probably was always a welterweight. It just the opportunities weren't at that weight class for me. So now I've done all the things I wanted to achieve. And so now I'm going to give myself the chance to go down to welterweight. I'm going to be a big welterweight. I'm excited about it. Yeah, like I said, we've made 152 easy before. So like 147 is not that far off, to be honest.
So, I mean, here's the thing. So now you're going to be at welterweight, and hopefully you stay at welterweight for a while to give your body to acclimatize to the weight class, because as a fighter, you need that. Now, you fluctuated at different weight classes. Do you feel that fluctuation in weight class affected your performance in terms of your losses?
No, I don't. The thing is with the women's game is that women go between the weights a lot more than the men do, because the opportunities, like I said, just not available all the time where you want to be. So you look at Amanda Serrano, she's been six different weight classes. You know, for women, it's quite common for us to go in between the weights, and it hasn't affected my performance. The only time I've ever felt that I was too small for the weight was actually when I boxed Savannah. So when I boxed Savannah at middleweight. So most of the rest of the time, I've felt fine at the weight and filled it out and got smaller and bigger and been fine.
Okay, excellent. I know the time is short, so I'm going to get some very key questions involved, because for the segment of I want to feature women in boxing, you are, well, as Noah rightly put, you're one of the top 5 boxers pound for pound, especially rated by WBC. And for people who follow female boxing, you have become a household name in the world of female boxers. And you came along at a time when female boxers, you probably benefited from the time when female boxing was actually on a mercurial rise, i.e., especially in this country with Nicola Adams, Katie Price out of Ireland. Those 2 household names, and then yourself. How do you feel about women's boxing for those people who are the naysayers who said, "Oh, girls shouldn't box"? What's your take on that? What do you say to something like that?
Well, I had that at the very beginning of my career. Lots of people saying, "Oh, why do you want to box? What does a pretty girl like you want to box for? Oh, why does a musician want to get into the boxing world?" That sort of thing. But now I think, like Noel said, 2020 has been the year for women's boxing. And ironically, and as horrible as COVID has been for the rest of the world, women's boxing is going to be the only female sport to have actually blossomed and grown during this time. And actually, weirdly, having a captive audience of people stuck in their houses has meant that having top female world title fights on the television has meant that people have tuned in to watch it. And that's actually helped us all become household names. You know, there's myself, Terry Harper, Savannah Marshall, you know, Natasha Jonas. All of us are starting to be spoken about, just like some of the guys. And that's an amazing turnaround. And I'm just so happy that it's happened. And it's quite exciting to be at the forefront of that change. You know, when I retire from boxing, I'm excited to see what's going to happen to the younger generation coming through. I can't wait to see where boxing is going to be in 10 years time or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be an exciting time. I think it's going to have actually grown to like a proper standard where we have a good number of women, especially even here in the UK. Like hopefully we'll have double the number of professional females.
I mean, you've only got to look at the WBC annual awards this year. Terry Harper, Tash Jonas got Fight of the Year. Hannah and Savannah got Dramatic Fight of the Year. So, I mean, that's 2 female bouts, 4 female fighters who won WBC awards this year.
I mean, in terms of, I mean, it is a fantastic achievement, because certainly when, you know, Noelle and I are probably similar in age, coming up as kids, you never heard of female fighters. I mean, I saw girls scrap. I'm from DC, so I saw a ton of women fight all the time because I'm from a fighting town. And I tell my friends over here that, you know, the girls fought as much as the guys, and they think I'm nuts. But so I'm used to seeing women fight, but just not in a professional atmosphere. And you're going to be a part of that emergence of female boxers. Now, in terms of that emergence, where would you like to see your career when it's all said and done? When it's all hung, where would you like, if you could look through a crystal ball? I know you said you want to be a 2-weight world champion. What other aspirations do you have as a female professional fighter?
As a female professional fighter, obviously my main goals are to, number one, I want to inspire a next generation of women to get involved with this sport, not even just on a professional level, but on all different levels, because boxing is fantastic for building confidence in anybody, man or woman. You know, it's great for that. It's great for fitness. It's great for building coordination, and just there's so many different positives that come out of boxing. And I think I would love people to look at it and think, oh, this is a great sport in general, and it can do so much for me as a person. And for myself, like I said, I want to be a 2-weight world champion minimum. Is what I want to achieve. My goal is obviously next going to get a welterweight world title. That's what I want to do. But I also want people to look back at my career and think, yeah, that girl didn't come the same way as everybody else did, but she put her mind to something, was dedicated and disciplined, loved what she did, had a great team around her, and went on to achieve great things. And so it doesn't matter what you're choosing to do in your life, you can actually get somewhere with that. And I think that's really important, you know, to be a sort of, you know, a bit of an inspiration to people sometimes, because, you know, I didn't go into it to become famous. I didn't go into boxing to become the next Mayweather. I went into it to see what I could do for myself. And actually it's having a real positive benefit for lots of people at home in Scotland. There's more females turning professional now. There's more girls in the sport. And it's just great to be a strong role model for people. So that's what I want to look back and see for myself.
Oh, you know, well said. It's really interesting because I was speaking to Don Charles last week in an interview, and Don was saying people in boxing, that the real people in boxing, they first do it for the love of the sport, and then money comes next.
Yeah.
I think if you get involved in boxing for money, it kind of gets twisted, because then your motivation will never match your passion. So the best fighter.
You can't do that as a woman.
Huh?
You can't do that as a fighter anyway. I don't know any women that go into boxing to get rich.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, Katie Price ain't doing too badly. You know, and Clarissa's got a few.
Yeah, she's doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, Noelle always says that, you know.
I mean, to be fair, Hannah's earned a living out of it in the.
Well, yeah, and you've always said, Noelle, that, you know, if Hannah was a guy, you know, you'd all be smelling roses, because, you know, to come from with no amateur background, and then to be turning pro, and to get the level of experience fighting for world titles, being a former world title holder herself, is a fantastic idea. And all that is within, 14 fights. I mean, it just doesn't happen with the guys. A guy would have to fight close to 20 fights before he fights for world title in most cases. So, I mean, I'm going to crack on with the next set of questions, because one of the things that I want to ask you about is the difference between training in the US and the UK. Is there any difference, or is there a big difference as a fighter?
So I love training in America. I really miss being in America. I haven't been there for a long time now. And the very first time I went there to fight, when I fought Alicia, I knew that I wanted to be signed over there. I wanted to spend time training over there with the girls. I love the American attitude towards sport in general. Right. I think people over there are so positive about it. It's like, it's considered a great career path if you choose to be a professional sports person. Like, and that's encouraged right from, like, you know, down in nursery school, all the way through, like, all different levels. If you want to do sport, you're encouraged, and that's a great thing. Right. And I feel here in the UK, sport is encouraged, but not towards, like, you're not going to become a superstar from it that easily. And it's kind of like something that people do, and then they kind of stop doing to do something properly, you know? Mm-hmm. Whereas in America, I feel like it's just so much better. I also love working in the American boxing gyms. There's some wealth of knowledge there. People are really geeky about what they do, and there's some fantastic fighters, like loads of female fighters as well. Like, I really love working at Gleason's. Some great fighters there too. So the difference is there's more women, and you get a lot of respect.
Yeah, I constantly say that. You know, I was talking to a guy yesterday who runs another podcast, and we had a conversation, and I was saying to him the difference between boxing clubs in the US and boxing clubs in the UK. If I walk to a boxing club in the US, I'm from DC, but let's say I go into a boxing club in New York, no one is going to be looking at me like I'm a man from the moon. unless I go in with a microphone and start shoving a microphone in people's mouths and try to exploit people, that's a different situation. And people over there, what I find is the kids, especially if you're trying to just gain knowledge, people have the time of day for you. Whereas here, it seems almost clownish if you go into a boxing club here. It's almost like they think, okay, why are you here? Who do you know? Why do you come in here? I mean, why this club? And I feel like, damn, dude, it's a boxing club in a neighborhood. You know what I mean? Where boxing clubs literally are like a barbershop. They are the cornerstone of most neighborhoods. And any kid from the street should be able to walk to a boxing club and it should be no problem. Do you sense the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, especially when I first started out in my career, obviously being a female fighter, you were just kind of looked at a bit like an alien when you're in the gym. Like, you know, you walk into a boxing gym and they're like, why is the girl here? And of course, having a female fighter, it must have been weird. You know, you walking in there and they're like, oh no, this is my fighter. I still get it here in the, you know, like they look at me odd because I'm a girl and they're like, oh, but she's a fighter? Okay, weird. But yeah, no, in America, I've met some amazing people in the gyms, just like guys who've forgotten more about boxing.
Corey Spinks.
Yeah, Corey Spinks. Yeah, that was one of the best days of my life. Obviously, in Florida, I was training for fighting in Detroit, and I met Corey Spinks, and he was actually having a nap beside the ring. And I was like, that's Corey Spinks. But anyway, he woke up and he gave me like 2 hours of like free information on the pads, just chatting me through stuff, and it was just one of the best days ever.
So yeah, I mean, I totally share that sentiment. I mean, it's like I think if I was running this podcast out of the U.S., I would be inundated with interviews. I would have interviews on my backside. It's not that bad here.
No, we'll hook you up.
What's that?
We'll hook you up. Don't worry.
All right, my man. Yeah, hook a brother up. I want to move right along because you answered my question about the sort of the difference between the U.S. and the UK, and I think that's also something that. Do you have any aspirations to be based in the UK or the US at some point, or you're happy with where you're at now?
Yeah, I do have aspirations to be based in America. I love it out there. I think the attitude of people is just so much better. I think as a professional sports person, it's the right environment to grow. So I would love to move over to America. So it's something that I am thinking about, and I'm just looking into the details and stuff.
Noel, get your bags ready because it looks like you're moving to America at some point.
We said we started this together, we'll finish it together. So I'll be a professional boxing coach until Hannah retires, and then I'm out. It's too much stress. I had hair. When I first met you, my beard was less grey. So,
I know. When I met you, you had hair. You're right. Now you don't have no hair.
So I'm done after this.
What we customarily do here in our podcast at Boxstar, we normally do a fire round. So we call it Boxstar one-on-one. So that means I shoot questions at you, you shoot questions back at me. You can't be flim-flammy with the answers. You got to say the answer. I don't want to hear maybe, no, oh, I don't know. You answer and then we give our verdict. So it's just you one-on-one with Boxstar. So I fire the questions at you and then we close off the segment. And then we can also, obviously, I'd love to do another interview at some point, but after the fight in South Africa.
Absolutely.
When you become
after this one-on-one, we've got to go because she needs to go and get her cryotherapy.
Cool. Right. So I'll fire off. So here we go. Best heavyweights in order. Your top four. Current heavyweights top four.
Okay, Mike Tyson, Andy Joshua.
No, current heavyweights right now. Fighting heavyweights.
Current. Okay. Andy Joshua, Fury. I don't know. Wilder. And Dillian White.
Noel, who's yours? Top four.
I would go AJ 1, Fury 2, Dylan 3, probably 4, Deontay Wilder.
Okay. Boxstar's verdict, AJ 1, Fury 2, Wilder 3, and 4. I'm only going to say his name because he should have got a shot as for the WBC and he got overlooked. But apart from that, I wouldn't have put him in there. But I'm going to say Dillian White. If it wasn't for the fact that he was avoided the WBC, he definitely would get the nod. Okay, he wouldn't get the nod. That being said, next one. Fury versus Wilder. If they fight the third time, who wins?
Fury.
Noel?
Fury.
Box star verdict, Fury. Okay, AJ versus Fury. Who wins?
AJ.
AJ.
Box star verdict, Fury. AJ versus Wilder. If they do fight, who wins?
AJ.
AJ.
Box star verdict, Wilder. So next up, next, I told you it's controversial, baby. We bringing the heat, baby. Okay, here's my next one. This is a good one. Can Anthony Yarde recover from the last loss to Art?
Yes.
Yes, he can.
Box star verdict, yes. Is Yarde overrated? Yes or no?
Yes.
Look, Hannah's like, I like the guy. I don't want to piss him off. Come on, you got to give me an answer, Hannah.
Yes.
Box star verdict, no. But I want to hear your answer. Why is he overrated?
Okay, so my thought process is that up until he fought Kovalev, he hadn't fought anybody.
I agree.
He hadn't fought any light heavyweights at all. They're all blown up super middleweights. So
Right.
he was knocking over people who he should be knocking over. He fought Kovalev, who, let's be honest, was probably a little bit washed up than the Kovalev that knocked out Nathan Cleverly.
Yeah.
And since then, he fought a guy who's like 0-400 or something in Spain. And then he lost to Lyndon Arthur. So I think potentially overrated, yes. That's my answer.
I think it's a bit overrated, but it's because he's not actually fulfilled his potential. Because when he fought Lyndon Arthur, we started to see some good stuff come out at the end, but it was all a little too late.
Right.
In my so like he has got it in him, but I think he needs to change things up a little bit, like, you know, and you know, have a look and see what he wants to make better. But I just think he's a bit overrated currently.
Go on him.
Segue for that one. You know, it's out there on the social media and everyone's burning his eardrums up. Is his coach the right coach for him? Should he change it up or should he add to the coaching staff?
See, this one, I've got a little bit of a different take on it. If as the head coach, like I've done with Hannah, you think things need to be improved and maybe you don't have the knowledge to improve it,
Right.
then you can bring other people in. I brought in Gary Jacobs to work with her mentally.
Yeah.
And for this camp, I brought in Rich the Secret Williams, the guy who fought Sergio Martinez twice and nearly won it.
Right.
If you're not, as the head coach, in MMA, it's considered to be normal. The head coach runs the team. He brings people in, or she brings people in, to do bits with the fighter.
Right.
In boxing, it's like it's all me or no one else, and everyone gets really territorial about it.
Yeah.
So I think if Tunde is going to stay as the coach, he maybe should bring other people into the team. That's my opinion anyway.
Hannah?
I 100% agree with that.
Okay, good. Okay, next question. Yarde versus Buatsi. Who wins if they fight?
Boatsi.
Boatsi.
I say it's close only because I like him. Yarde wins it. Anyway, next one coming up. Best lightweights, current top 4 lightweights. What's your order? Hannah.
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Okay, go first.
Lopez 1.
Yep.
Lobo 2.
Right.
I still think Linares is up there when he performs at 3.
Uh-huh.
Probably go Ryan Garcia 4, controversially.
Okay, Hannah, go ahead.
So I would probably say Lopez at the top, obviously.
Please don't say Linares. I'm going to chew his ass out next time I talk to him. But go ahead.
Lopez, Garcia, Loma, and I do like Linares. I think he's great, you know. But
Man, what y'all smoking over there in that gym, man? I'm going to come to your door. I'm going to do a urine sample over there, man. Now, I think both of y'all lost your damn mind saying Linares, and I wouldn't put Loma in there myself. Here I go. We all agree Lopez, because he's a king of the division.
Tank should be in there.
Thank you very much. I knew you was my sweetheart. So, box star verdict, Lopez, Haney, Tank, and I'm only going to throw in Garcia because I like the brother. I think he's doing his thing. So, that's my verdict. Okay, I'm going to end this segment with your best fighters of all time, top 5. That could be anybody.
Marvin Hagler.
First.
Marvin Hagler.
Okay. Is he number one?
I'm putting him on the top.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Marvin Hagler, and then I'm gonna go for after that, Arturo Gatti.
Okay. You love the bangers, don't you?
Yep. Sugar Ray Robinson.
Okay.
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Okay.
Roberto Duran.
Damn. Woo! That's saucy. She brought fire that time. Go ahead, Noel. On you, sir.
I would go favorite Duran 1.
Wow.
Gatti 2.
Damn.
I mean, you see a thing going there.
I know.
Sugar Ray Leonard 3.
Right.
Mike Tyson 4.
Right.
I like Tyson. And I would put Ali in at 5.
God damn. Well, Boxstar top verdict. Ray Robinson, 1. 2, Ali. 3, Mayweather. I'm surprised you didn't put Mayweather in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're forgiven. 4, Roy Jones Jr. 5, Lennox Lewis, the last undisputed heavyweight champ and the best fighter to ever come out of the UK soil. And that's Boxstar verdict. And I'm going to put it there. Next best UK fighter, Hannah Rankin. Second best UK fighter. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna end that segment with a lot of love and respect. I'm gonna say that this podcast was basically sponsored by is actually sponsored by Boxfit UK, the home of boxing. They're co-sponsors with us. Also, Reka, REKA, Property Management. They specialize in HMOs and they're doing some great work in building homes in London. And also Next Phase Fitness, a company which I founded, yours truly. So we really are appreciated we appreciate those guys who support this podcast and the segment of all our videos that we put out there. We're trying to put out some really good material. We'd love to thank Hannah and Noel having a time. You have
no problem.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. And we hope to do it again. Let's do it again soon, guys.
Yeah,
100%, yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck in South Africa. When do you fly to South Africa?
3rd of March.
3rd of March. And the fight is when?
12th.
12th. Will it be televised?
Yes, it's going to be. So the link is accessible on all of my social media platforms, on my Instagram account, in my bio. You can access the link there. It's on SEI Sports, and it's £7.50 for a 12-fight card. And you guys can tune in to watch. I'm the co-main event.
We'll be on about 6 p.m. UK time.
So, and Hannah, give a mad shout out. Who do you want to give a mad shout out to? Who, we like to give shout outs. Who you giving shout outs to? Your hubby, who you giving shout outs to, baby girl?
I'm going to give a big shout out to Everlast, who obviously sponsors all my kit. Susie Wong does all the rest of my kit. Science and Sport, actually. They do all my supplements. Huge shout out to Sam Kinnock for sorting out my next fight with Fight Africa Promotions. Really excited about that. Shout out to my coach, of course, for spending so much time with me. But yeah, thank you to all my sponsors and especially Stewart and Shields, who are a massive help to me in this upcoming fight as well.
And where can all of our viewers and listeners follow you on Instagram or social media?
So I made it easy for everybody. On Instagram and Twitter and on Facebook, it's team_Rankin. It's the same for them all. So team_Rankin, and that's for Hannah Rankin, professional boxer.
And with that, we are going to sign out. We want to thank you guys. Have a safe training camp. We are out of here. Off to the next one. Good luck to you, and we'll speak to you soon, baby girl.
Speak to you soon. Thanks, Terry. Bye.
Bye, guys.